Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off Show. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the program, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Haven't we been blessed with the beautiful weather recently, with so much sunshine, flowers starting to come through the earth, and just weather that's not so hot that you can't move. I'm not a hot weather girl. But yeah, things are getting in, we're feeling spring now. And that's a happy thought. And pretty soon it'll be nice and hot and summery, and those of you who love that can enjoy that. I'll be looking forward to fall. But we have to enjoy each day as we go along, especially when you get to be my age. Well, every age, actually. So before I introduce one of my guests, I have two guests tonight, but because of the regulations they're needed at the TV station, I will have each one of them on for a half hour. Okay, so one thing that is really one of many things that are very concerning to me these days, the reckless spending, not only in the state of Vermont, but also in this nation. Our nation has, I believe, close to a $30 trillion debt, up from $20 trillion when, let me see, what was it? When George Bush left office, I think it was 10 or so. I don't want to misspeak. Somebody can call in and correct me if they want, but we're up to almost $30 trillion in debt. Now, that is not good for the United States, and we need to start being careful instead of trying to be everything for everybody all the time. Okay. The expansion of government control over our lives is something that I find very disturbing. We need to be as independent as we can and let the government fulfill its constitutional role, period. Okay. We're also in many states, depriving children of their classroom education, and that's causing a lot of problems with young people as well as with families. So we need to get the children back into the schools. Hear that, teachers? We need to get the children back into the schools. Okay. One more thing. There are attempts by legislators, not only in Vermont, but also in the U.S. Congress, to erase our constitutional rights, including the right to free speech and the right to our Second Amendment to carry arms, to be armed, and to be able to protect ourselves and our families. Okay. I'll have more of a list next week. I'm sure you were thrilled with that one. But anyway, now it's time to introduce my friend and a wonderful guest, Melinda White. Melinda, welcome.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be back here with you after it's been, I think, a couple years since I've been on your show.
Has it been that long?
I think so. It was when this studio was new. And
really?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I had no idea it was that long. Well, we'll have to do this more often.
No, absolutely.
Why don't we do this more often?
At least I get to see you at church, so it's not like I haven't seen you in 2 years.
True.
That part is a blessing.
Yeah, it is.
And in community.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to attend that church. The people there are so nice.
It's family.
It is family.
Yep.
People care about you,
Genuinely.
Yeah, and they when we weren't all masked up like, who was it? The cowboy, the Lone Ranger, was he masked? Anyway, we've been feeling like Lone Rangers actually with this coronavirus.
Absolutely.
And all these restrictions, but How did I roll into that?
We're survivors. Church of the Rock. Well, that's a funny thing, too, is that was the church. That was the first place I went to be open about my own addiction with Pastor Mike Oldham.
No
and God bless his heart.
kidding.
Oh, yeah. He was the vessel that God chose for me to have my life saved because I wasn't honest with anybody else in my entire life. And it was him I went to. And that poor man, because that was years ago, almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
That poor man knew he had to do something. And now it's like he's back. Now he's there as the senior pastor.
Yes.
And I'm on the worship team, and it's like, who would have ever thought that this day would have come? They were sure I'd be buried.
The circle came around, didn't it?
Yep.
Well, we're all blessed that you were able to work through your addiction, but you're especially blessed as well.
Had the best people.
And you're
best
making
people.
so much of your life because you have I believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Melinda, but you have a passion for life and for understanding what other people are going through.
Yeah. It's interesting because I Googled the definition of happiness a long time ago. And of course, there's many different definitions, but the 3 Ps, which are purpose, passion, and pleasure. So when I hear you say passion, it's like, thank God I do have that. Therefore, I'm happy.
Yes.
And it's because of that purpose, too.
I say this to people all the time recently. One of the most important things you can do for yourself in this life is to find your purpose.
Yeah.
Find something for your life that you're passionate about, that you feel good about, that you, and the other thing I often have been heard to say is that when you help someone else, you are also helping yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you feel good because you're doing a good deed.
Yep.
And so both individuals are blessed.
Yep. In the world of recovery, we say you can't keep it without giving it away. And that is with anything. You can't keep the blessings without giving it away. And the more I've learned that, I remember hearing that if you're having a hard day, go do something nice for somebody. In the very beginning, my sponsor said, go to the grocery store, open the door. And it's like, well, they're electronic. Well, go step on the thing then. But it's that whole act of taking a physical action for something selfless, for somebody else, and it changes the chemistry in the brain where there's a shift. So it's so true.
Yes, you feel like you're a good person.
Yeah.
That you are blessed to be able to help someone else too.
Right, absolutely.
And at the same time, you're helping yourself.
Yeah.
So, anybody who's sitting at home and feeling blue and alone and, just like sad, think of something you can do for someone else, whether it's just a kind phone call or baking some cookies and, putting a mask on and taking them over to your neighbor or, just little things. It means so much. All the time, but especially in times like these.
Especially in times like these. I think, it's interesting because, and I know we want to get into some meat and
Yes,
potatoes, but one last fact is my husband and I live in a building with many people it's a retirement building. There's 15% population that's not retirement age, and that's us. And when this pandemic hit, we, a year ago for Easter, went to the store, picked up a lot of stuff and went door to door and dropped it off and we did that for Christmas. And those are the kinds of things that I felt in a funk when we did it this year. That day I was just feeling off, and then we went and picked up the stuff and came back out, and it was a whole shift, a psychic shift that happens.
For you.
Absolutely. It's such a blessing to give.
He who focus on self all the time make very small package.
Yeah.
It's not well said, but you get the point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Melinda, you're doing some pretty special work, and you have a passion because of your own life, and partially anyway. And so you working for Phoenix House now?
Correct.
Now,
Yep.
Tell me about Phoenix House, because I'm oblivious. I've heard of it, but I really don't know a lot about it.
Gladly, yes. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to work there. So the last time that you and I had connected, I was working at Northwestern Medical Center. We had the pain clinic, which essentially turned into the Hope and Recovery Clinic. We had an amazing team of providers and over 400 patients in the community.
Wow.
Beautiful team. When COVID hit, it caused a lot of issues, as we know, especially for hospitals, that clinic wasn't able to continue. That being said, I'm back with that team. Most of the team and the patients are at the Phoenix House now. So the Phoenix
really?
House is recovery residences. So they have 5 recovery residences across the state of Vermont, which is confusing to the part that we're in, because we're still an outpatient spoke, just like Hope and Recovery was. So that's
it's outpatient.
Yeah, so it's outpatient spoke. We're doing the same services that we were doing previously, and we have 400 plus patients that followed us there. But the Phoenix House, because they're larger, so we have Phoenix House of New England, which April 1st of 2019 branched off in itself to focus on the New England area. And then in Vermont, there's 5 recovery residences, and that's when you think Phoenix House, people have asked me, well, which house do you work at? Well, I don't work at a house, so that's why we're calling it Phoenix House Health and Recovery Solutions for the spoke part of it, because that's all outpatient. So the Phoenix House offers a slew of services, but I'll focus more on the ones that I'm part of with the outpatient spoke. So the Phoenix House Health and Recovery Solutions. And it's the similar work that we were doing previously, where if people have, I say opioid use disorder, however, it's if they're struggling with addiction. We have individuals who are struggling with alcohol. We have, so we treat, it's kind of that no wrong door type of thing, where we treat people and meet them where they're at and get them connected to the proper resources to help them be successful. So my specific position there is an access and referral coordinator. So part of my job is to work with community partners. So of course, you and I saw each other at the legislative breakfast. I go to the community partnership. A big piece of my job is maintaining those relationships with our partners, including law enforcement, DCF, probation and parole. So I still have all those relationships that I had previously, so we can look at and work on systems, so find gaps, work on systems at a state level, because I'm still connected with what was previously the governor's opioid coordination council. Now it's the intervention, treatment, and recovery team. So again, continuing that work. So that's a big piece of my job. And then the other part of my job, which I absolutely adore, is the direct care with individuals.
One-on-one.
I can't speak highly enough about it. There's no way to put into words what it feels like to watch somebody who is completely broken and hopeless, with nothing to live for in their thought and their mind, and seeing that they are capable of beautiful things, and then seeing them finally
Find their way. Now, Melinda, can you give the viewers and me a perspective on how does a person get to that place where they're just lost?
So the first key, like the answer, and I hate repeating slogans because it gets annoying sometimes, but I really love this one, that the solution to addiction is connection, right? So it used to be that, oh, it's recovery, or oh, it's this. No, it's connection. So the key is, if somebody is in need of help, getting connected. And that's where I feel super fortunate and blessed that my position is like that community contact, that even if a person needs help with their addiction and Phoenix House won't be the appropriate end game, I can still help them. I can still connect them, which is why it's critical to stay connected with the community partners and know what their process is. If somebody comes to me and they need help, I'm not going to say, oh, well, call this number. I'm going to say, so-and-so that I work with and have shook hands with and side by side, and this is like, I want to give them all the information, because it shouldn't be up to a broken person to navigate our systems.
No.
We struggle with it.
No,
So
that's your job, to help work them through.
Exactly. And really the key is making sure that, we look at often, what is the person addicted to? What are the drugs? What's the medications that are used? And in my opinion, that's such a small piece of the true solution of addiction. there's medication can be necessary at times, but the solution is looking at the social matrix, as it's called. Another term is recovery capital, which, depending if you're doing treatment, it's social matrix oftentimes, it may be recovery capital in the recovery world, but at the end of the day, what it really means is looking at the person's life. Where are they living, if they even have a home? Is it safe? What do their relationships look like? Do they have any safe connections? The connection is a huge piece, is who do they have that is a safe support? And when I look at Phoenix House, the houses, the RISE programs, the residential programs, that's where it's an atmosphere where an individual can live in a place that is safe, supportive, substance-free housing. So if there's a housing issue, again, there's another answer for it. If there's connection with people, like I don't know what to do to have fun without drugs and alcohol, I connect them with the recovery centers, with the Turning Point of Franklin County. There's 12 recovery centers across the state of Vermont.
Wow.
One in each county. The Vermont Recovery Network is an umbrella with those centers where they have great information and consistency across the centers, but yet they still have their own uniqueness. So, it's identifying where is the person's biggest challenge, what is their biggest struggle, and finding a solution.
Wow.
For some people, they want a certain job. Okay, let's work on that. What is it going to take? Do we connect you with CCV, with Vermont Adult Learning to get some education and training? Do we get you into some kind of an apprenticeship or a work study? So we work so closely with Voc Rehab, NCSS, employment consultants, restorative, the list goes on forever. But by working so closely with those organizations, we can connect the person in need to the proper resource and continue to follow up with them to see how it's going.
So many moving parts.
Tons of moving parts.
It's not the human mind and body are not simple.
No.
And there are so many things in life that can, whether you want it or not, turn your life around negatively or positively. And I can't imagine. I would like to be a fly on the wall to see how this works when someone comes in and is obviously troubled and feeling maybe really down and helpless and alone and just not feeling like they can pick themselves up and move on. Right. That they really need a lot of attention and guidance and caring.
What they need is love. And that's the key, exactly. And that's the key. And sometimes people misunderstand what is love. There is the warmth, like I love my husband, I hold him, it's affection. Yeah. But love is actually an action. Caring. Yes, it's like it's your respect into action and putting action behind saying that I do care. And I think of an individual that years ago, I won't go in tons of detail, but somebody that was basically at the complete bottom with never having gotten help, never having any information on how to do it, all of a sudden had a huge possible record over their head because it was a referral from the Vermont State Police. And I look at that person years later now who was completely broken and at a bottom and looked like horrible, to be honest. It looked like he was already half dead. And now this person is a leader, and that's one of many.
Wow.
So again, it's like it starts with one connection and telling a person that I know you think life will never get better and you're not worth it.
Because you've been there.
Exactly. And it's like, but just let me believe in you if you can't believe in yourself. Let me love you until you can love yourself. Let me, so it's really just extending. And we think about sometimes, faith might be a piece of that too. If you don't believe, then just believe that I believe. You don't have to know what I believe in, but just know that there's hope. And that's the thing, is being that, I guess I consider myself that bridge. Whether it's a bridge between services, bridge with providers, but at the end of the day, let me be that bridge to help you get to the next side and hold you up when you're falling down.
And while you are working with this individual and listening and guiding and so forth, you're also saying, I believe in you.
Absolutely.
Which is oftentimes, I'm guessing, because I haven't been in that place, that's something that's very, very valuable to them. This person cares enough about me and believes in me enough that they're willing to put themselves out there to help me to get through this horrendous part of my life.
You know, I remember telling somebody that I was so proud of them, and it blew me away when their response was that they started crying and said,
Never
nobody's
heard it
ever.
before.
Yeah, and I guess I couldn't believe it for the longest
sad.
time, but I've heard more people over the years, and it baffles me. It baffles me.
Well, sometimes, now, I don't mean to allude that every person's problems are somehow related to parenting issues, not having, supportive, guiding parents. So in some cases, yes, but in some cases, no.
Right.
And but I do think that sometimes it would be a good thought to have parenting classes.
Absolutely.
You agree?
Oh, yeah, and there are some available, which is fantastic. What we find at times, and of course, I'm speaking more pre-COVID, although there are some available via Zoom as well, but I definitely think the in-person is what makes it so helpful. There's nurturing parents, nurturing fathers, rocking horse, and essentially what those groups are to teach individuals how to parent, and everything from how do you cook a healthy meal? How do you shop, how do you choose out your groceries and shop in a way with a small budget that you can cook a small meal for your family?
Get the best for your buck.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also, how do you communicate to your child? If X, Y, and Z happens, what's your response? So there are great programs.
So important.
Absolutely.
Because when you have children, how you relate with them and how you guide them and set an example for them is definitely going to have a huge impact on their life. It's
Absolutely.
Such a huge responsibility. You have to grow up and be a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. And those parenting classes, they're so great, and yet they're so underutilized. And there was times that I would see when the attendance, and that's been a challenge for years, really avoiding things like no-show rates and people who just don't make it, don't show up. And there's a number of barriers when I talk about analyzing gaps in our systems and barriers. Transportation can be affording a car that can run and meet the state inspection. So there's so many different reasons.
Moving parts, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, because we're on a half-hour schedule versus an hour, because we have your husband coming on next, I want to make sure that we get to some of the critical things that you wanted to be sure to address, so other than what we've been talking about. So what would be, well, we've hit on, actually, some of this.
One thing I didn't talk about yet was what I have sitting on my table,
go ahead.
Which I'll make it very brief, but I was excited that you were open to the idea of me mentioning. So the harm reduction packs, they're known as HRPs because everything in the medical world is acronyms.
Wait.
So
what harm
reduction packs. Yep. So harm reduction packs are available through the health department, and what they have now, they have continued to add items to them. So there's 2 Narcan kits instead of 1, because as we know, fentanyl is...
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay, sorry. So when fentanyl is the leading cause of overdoses, and what happens is, you had asked about the trends on the streets. So in the last couple of years, and then also in the last year, we look at opioid overdoses and the war on opiates and whatnot, and yet what we have found is that the more that we've had treatment providers in the area, like Phoenix House is an outpatient spoke, the BART clinic is a hub, and there's other spokes. So there's outpatient treatment for individuals who are diagnosed with opioid use disorder. What we have found, though, is that the use of cocaine and stimulants has been rising. What we're finding more now also is that individuals who are selling these drugs on the streets are cutting everything with fentanyl, including cocaine. So we've had some people who say, I used to do it recreationally once or twice a month, and now I can't stop using it because there's fentanyl in it. And then we're also seeing an increase in drug overdoses. And one thing that I did want to touch on, I'm going to pull up the numbers, is just for an example. I want to preface by saying I definitely am grateful for the amount of attention that's put on COVID and the support around COVID. One thing that I struggle with morally is that there's not enough focus on addiction. I mentioned we have over 400 patients. Today I learned about 468, I believe she said that we have, for outpatient. And
is this
Phoenix House? Yep.
468
was the number that I heard today. And to my knowledge, we have not lost any of our patients since the pandemic to COVID. But we have lost patients to addiction, overdose, fatal, and to suicide. So the challenge is that it's not to take away the focus that COVID is important, but also not to forget that there's something else going on that's killing people that we're not talking about enough. In 2019, there were 114 deaths. In 2020, there were 157 deaths. So that is a 38% rise in 1 year.
But is that tied in with COVID plus drugs?
No, this is just with drug overdoses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we're not, it's like, and this is just my opinion, although I know it's not only mine because I work with enough community partners, but we're not talking enough about the losses that we're experiencing in the last year with deaths due to overdose and drug-related fatalities. So the challenge is that there was something called stimulus parties, where individuals were getting their stimulus checks and using purple heroin, where heroin is also being cut. We know there's fentanyl cut with heroin, but it's also being cut with benzodiazepines, which are the worst thing to interact for respiratory failure. So the challenge is that there's so much dangerous stuff out on the streets.
How many young people?
I don't have the ages of everybody, and that's something that I'm wanting to dig more.
Sad.
We have a big meeting next week about that.
Yeah, I really would
want to get those.
I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about all of this, but one thing I wanted to mention quickly is the sale of marijuana in local stores. Are you kidding me?
I feel like it's so controversial, and I'm nervous to say anything, but the most I'll say is that I feel as though we are setting a new norm that using drugs is an everyday thing.
Oh,
it's scary
it's
to
fine.
me.
Just destroy yourself.
It's very scary to me. I really work on taking bias training so I can be aware of my own bias because of my experience.
Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, I'm comfortable. I'm transparent. I'm comfortable. I think for people who have cancer, I think for specific diagnosis and specific circumstances, marijuana could be a good fit. But I think to have it out there as a recreational thing, not knowing...
For what purpose?
Money.
No.
Oh.
Marijuana for cancer. What is it, a psychological thing or is it a physical thing?
So the marijuana for some cancer patients, there's some patients that do feel like they get more pain relief from the marijuana, and it could be a combination. I don't know the details of it medically, but what I do know is that if somebody's going to smoke marijuana, and it's a monitored amount, so they know how much THC is in it, as opposed to take an opiate painkiller and have to increase those opiate painkillers as time goes on, that's the piece that for me I can see the argument, if that's a good word, but I can understand why there's a push for something like that, because the goal is to look at risk versus benefit.
But it has to be controlled how it's delivered.
Absolutely.
Instead of just going to a local store. I am just so against that, especially with young people getting involved, starting off with marijuana. Now, I think we're down to 1 minute and 13 seconds. A minute and 8 seconds now. Time flies when you're having fun.
It does.
So, one last hurrah here that you want to share?
I guess more than anything, just to continue to get the reminder out there that things like Narcan is that's available, and right now every household should have one in their medicine cabinet. And then also that there is a solution for anybody who's struggling with drug addiction, and also the family members. I can't say how many family members I've been connecting with recently. So just for people to remember, and I say this on the Recovery Rockstar show alone, you're not alone. You are not alone. Reach out, because there are people out there that know how to connect to you.
I don't care.
Absolutely. I'm not a professional in anything, but I sure as heck know the best rock stars we have in the community to connect you with.
Well, I don't know. You might be a professional. I want to thank you so much for, not just for who you are, Melinda, but for all that you do and how much you care about helping people through the hardships in their lives. It's just such a blessing, and you're an inspiration.
Thank you.
So,
it blesses me, I think, more than it blesses them. So.
It's when you do for others, you're also helping yourself, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. It reinforces. Absolutely. Well, I love you to pieces, and I'm going to slide out so your second guest can come on. I think I know this guy.
You think so?
I think I might recognize him. Thank you, Linda.
I know him a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Well, folks, this couple is amazing. They are just a dynamic pair, and they're both wonderful, caring, healing people who want to make a difference in other people's lives. And with that, I'm going to welcome Jody White, Mr. Wonderful. I just let Mrs. Wonderful go.
Thank you so much, Linda. It's a privilege and an honor to even see you again.
Aww.
I can't wait to get that hug in I always love giving you. And like Melinda had said, it's been a couple of years since we've had an opportunity to be on the show. A lot has happened, in the world that we're in, and my wife is a tough lead to follow.
Oh, yeah, but you can hold your own. Yeah, come up a little, I don't know, yeah, just to the mic a little
Sure.
bit. And then the hard of hearing can hear you better, too. Yeah, I have a big birthday next week, so it's on the night of my show. I'm going to do the show, though. The show must go on.
Yes, the show must go on.
Yeah, you two are such an inspiration, and the fact that the two of you got together, and you're the dynamic duo. And it's wonderful to see you in church and, occasionally on the street and get my big hug.
Yes. Yeah, no, and it's, I think that I would follow up from, what Melinda was talking about.
Please.
And just being in regards to, there's willingness to surrender to whatever you're going through. There's also steps that need to be taken, and it's not, for me today to be live on TV, having a conversation, if I look back to where I was 6-7 years ago, I just celebrated an anniversary of not having a minor mood-altering substance in my body in over 6 years.
Good.
On March 28th. And so, but when I look before that, and the struggles that I had to go through, and that's where that peer-to-peer, to meet these people where they're at and to have these conversations, that you too can do this. Melinda and I weren't just a pick of the litter saying, all right, I'm going to pick these two, and and that's it. Everybody has an opportunity to have what we have.
The place that you've come to, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were there where some of these people are that we're meeting. And so if nothing else, I'd love to give hope that anybody can change when you put your mind to it.
How low do you have to go before you're willing to acknowledge that something has to give?
Linda, that's a scary question for some people. Some people, I actually thought that there was a trap door, and it just kept on opening. And some people.
You mean you couldn't get out?
Right. Right. And so the good news is falling into that trap door, not having a doctor could come and say, and write me a prescription, and this is your way out. A pastor could come along and say, hey, this is the way out. I could have a family friend, hey, this is the way out. But the result is that when that peer that's been there and done that comes down and jumps in that hole with me, and I'm like, look at him and say, you're crazy, what are you doing down here? I know the way out. And so we go out together. And so that's when, in the work that I do today, going out into the community and wearing, my heart on my sleeve. I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide. And that's just the way it is.
Well, I hope you're proud of where you have come to.
I am. I really am. Others see it before I see it in myself. I'm in transition right now. I've been with the Restorative Justice Center as a pretrial services coordinator for a little over 3 years. And due to the pandemic, I put a little alter in my referrals. So unfortunately, I had to move on. So I have given them a 3-week notice, and my last day there will be April 23rd. I'm currently working on finishing up that job, and I'm also down in Chittenden County right now as a recovery coach outreach.
For whom?
So that's for the Chittenden County Turning Point. They put together an outreach, and they connected with economic services and what was the other? I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay. Welcome to my world. I could sing that too. Welcome to my
Harbor
world.
Harbor Place is down on Shelburne Road.
Yeah.
So Economic Services makes a referral to Harbor Place, and then Harbor Place makes a connection with Chittenden County Turning Point. And so I'm boots on the ground. About close to 20 hours a week. Just being out in the open, being available for individuals, and helping with any resources that they may need.
Are there certain areas of the state that have the highest, what's the word I want? Numbers of people who display addiction? Is it like a big city? Or is it?
It's funny that you say that because I've been so secluded into Franklin County and the roots here and being boots on the ground. I really thought that we were that city, that we were the worst. And as I've gone to other places, it's clear across the state. How
did this get started? When do you have any idea what kicked this off, and in what time frame? Is there a big, here's another portion of a question, is there a big importation of drugs from other countries that we're allowing to come in here?
Well, there's a couple different answers to that question. I think one of Vermont's biggest problems is that we're surrounded by borders, right? So that's a big piece of trafficking and drugs coming through because that exact reason that we're surrounded by borders. I'm
concerned about the southern border and all of these drug dealers are coming through. That's not going to help our country.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the reasons why I get up every morning and I do my morning prayers and devotion. And I thank God that I'm on this side of the fence, that I'm on this side of the grass, that my feet are hitting the floor this morning and ready to be of service. And it's just putting one foot in front of the other to make that difference. And again, to bring that hope. I mean, I really can't emphasize enough of how much hope I want to be able to bring to these individuals, because they don't know. And when you talk about being homeless, there's a lot to that. And it's not so much how did they end up there, because it could be as simple as COVID, and they lost their job and then they couldn't pay their rent or they couldn't pay their mortgage.
And they didn't have any friends
right.
or family.
And so it's not just about an individual that's suffering from substance use or substance abuse. There's families that are
dysfunctional.
Just were in a situation where they lost their job because they couldn't go into work, or they didn't have nobody to watch their kids. Or I mean, it goes. You talk about childcare, you talk about transportation. I mean, the list goes on and on. But when you take somebody that's homeless and they have no place to go, that does something to your psyche.
Yeah, I wonder what I would do if I were in that place. Well, I have family around, and I have friends around, but you also, if you should get yourself into a place where you find yourself homeless, let's say as an example, it would be a lot better for you if you had established positive relationships with the people in your lives ahead of time, not because you thought you might be homeless, but because it's how we treat people in our lives.
Well, you bring up a valid point, and it was always my theory is that I treat everybody equal, regardless. Even some of the people that I socialized in my previous life. I don't know when I'm ever going to need those people again. If I'm broken down on the side of the road, in the middle of the night, I want to be able to treat people the way that I want to be treated.
Right.
I think that the people that I'm working with, that we're talking about, there are so many programs out there. There is so much help. It really comes down to take away the pride, take away the ego, and get the help.
Absolutely.
And whether if it's me holding their hand and walking them through it, or somebody else, the help is there.
And there are very few people who can say they never have needed any kind of help, whether it pertains to addiction or a hard time in your life where you're feeling emotional and you need some support and some caring. It doesn't need to relate to addiction, but in many cases, people are getting into addictive lifestyles.
Well, I think, and part of what you and Melinda were talking about as well, it's available. It's available.
And who's making it available?
Well, that again goes back to those borders. I mean, I could go down a bunch of different rabbit holes, but what I know is, trying to put things out there as in prevention, and letting people know that there's, more to life than drugs and alcohol. And so if I was to reverse what I said about my morning devotion and what I have to do on a daily basis, if I look back when I was active, I would do anything that I had to do to get what I wanted. Whether if that was going to the store to get beer, or if that was, going to see my drug dealer, nothing stood in my way. So when I reverse those roles and understand that whatever I put in front of my recovery, I lose, still to this day, and that's including my lovely wife. My recovery has to come first. And if I go one step further, I put God first, but and in regards to my recovery and what I have to do, if I'm not taking care of me, then I'm no good to anybody else.
That's right. Then your relationship and everything else goes awry.
That's right.
Whether it be employment or whether it be relationship or an opportunity for you to enhance your life.
And I think about it as impossible is nothing.
Impossible?
Impossible is nothing.
Is nothing. In other words, you don't have to have that word in your vocabulary.
No. Adidas used to say, I think it was nothing is impossible. And so when I reverse that, impossible is nothing. When you put your mind to something, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And I say that if God brings me to it, he's going to bring me through it. So it's just really amazing when I think about all the things that I've done, and even coming into the line of work that I do, I was still a little shaky about doing it, but the longer that I reached out and asked for help, I mean, fresh out of jail, coming out from behind the wall, and started to volunteer. I'm not getting paid for nothing. Well, most people say, I don't want to volunteer, I don't get nothing. You do get something. You get back tenfold.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, like you and Melinda were talking about, if you give, you don't ever know when you're going to get it back, but it comes back.
Absolutely. And you don't do it for the purpose of getting something back. You do it because you want to do the right thing. You've already been in the circumstance. You know what it feels like. And if you can help someone else to find their way through it and beyond it, that is a gift to you.
Right. And I have, and that's the nice part. Earlier this week, I had to shred some files because they're over a certain period of time to clean up, and I went through one of the files, and I almost think that it was
intentional,
an individual that Melinda had brought up, possibly. But even if it wasn't, that individual that I saw, those papers that I had to shred, is a shining star today.
Oh.
And I have a good handful of people that I know that I was there for them. They did the work. I was just there to guide them along the way.
And be a supporter.
And be a support. The same it was for me. I had to do the work. It wasn't given to me.
That's what life's about. It's getting through the tough times, coming out on the other side, and being grateful and appreciative, and then making your life something better, and hopefully enlightening other people's lives.
Yes.
That is a gift.
Yeah.
And you have come from here to here, right?
Yeah.
May I ask how, if you're willing, how did you get into that lower part of your life?
Sure. It was really not having a solution. It wasn't having a solution to my problems, and that's the difference. That's part of the work.
You couldn't see a solution to what was going on in your life?
Nope. Addiction, alcoholism, and it doesn't necessarily have to be drugs or alcohol. I mean, I could talk about when I got the drugs and alcohol out of my body, and then I drank, a pot of coffee a day. Or,
a substitute.
Right, so there's a substitute. So, but in my bottom zoned in, like I was saying, I would go to any length to get whatever it was that I needed, whether if I had to, it was 10 below zero, or I was trudging through, a foot of snow, walking, whatever the case may be. Tunnel vision. Now, you would have been able to see it and say, well, that boy's headed for a long road. And my parents are saying, all right, yeah, I don't know what to do. And they would reach out to this one and reach out to that one. Can you help him? No.
They didn't know how to help you.
No.
And probably if they had even known how to try, you might not have accepted
No.
it. Because I have this idea that might be wrong, that if a person is addicted to a substance, or maybe more than one, I don't know, they're not friendly to the idea of someone else trying to change them.
Right.
They need to, you gotta wanna,
Yeah, and
before
that's,
anybody can help you.
yeah, and that's kind of what, with most people that I help, I base it off from a percentage. So I'll match anybody for the effort that they're going to put in. And so if you're only putting in 10%, then I'm going to give the 10% back. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Checking in. We'll see you next time.
If you're working with someone.
Right. But if somebody's giving me 100%, I'm going to give them 110%, and then we're gonna get through this. It's really, I mean, it takes time.
It's almost like you would feel like I hate to put it this way, but like you're wasting your time if this person isn't going to really work to change their life.
I'm not going to pull back what I said, but what does happen in the line of work that I do is that I never know sometimes the impact that I've made off just a few words. And I may never ever see the results of that. And so when I do get individuals that come to me, I remember you at such and such time and you said this. Wow, really? And I've worked with individuals that I thought that I never in a million years would make an impact on. And then my phone rings, or I get a message on Messenger and Facebook. And it fills me up.
That's your reward.
That's it. That's it.
And I can't think of a better gift that you or Melinda or anyone else in that field who is trying to help people to get through this roadblock, so to speak, in their lives, excuse me, how rewarding that can be. It's like, in a way, well, maybe not, I was going to say it's like raising children, excuse me, from infancy and helping them as they're growing up and, finding out there are some things they get frustrated, there are some things that they can't accomplish, whether it's putting, a puzzle together or whatever it might be. Life's a big puzzle.
It is.
And, I can't imagine. I try to be supportive of people, but not in any way to the extent that you and Melinda do and other people who are working in the field. You have a compassion built with an experience in your own lives.
Yeah.
And you know how hard it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's not, Melinda and I are in the field, and that we know that's where we're supposed to be. That's where we're supposed to be. We are exactly where we're supposed to be. We know that. When we spent some time in Florida this winter, we were like, and as soon as we came back, all right, this is right where we're supposed to be. And so with that said, though, I want individuals, if they're listening tonight, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to work in the field to have a good life today. You can. I know an individual that's worked in a grocery store for 30 years, and she's the most amazing woman that I've ever met, and she's just good at what she does.
Yeah.
And that's where her spot is.
Yes.
And I know other people that are in other positions, and that's where their spot is.
If you find your niche in life,
yes,
and you love it,
yep.
Even though there may be tough days, but that's how we get to be what we're made of. We deal with the hard days as well as the days that are easy to roll through. But no job is always easy.
no.
We have to be prepared to step up and to find a way to cope in a positive way with the roadblocks and the challenges that come along in life. And nobody ever said life was going to be easy. I cannot imagine having had an addiction and trying to overcome it. I mean, I can't imagine that. That has to take a lot of inner strength and a strong will and just a feeling of having had enough of where you were.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, it really is. And you had asked the question, like, what's that bottom look like? And everybody's bottom is different. Everybody's bottom is different. I can say that my bottom was hit a couple of different times, but that last one was it. I'm done. And I don't have the obsession to drink. I don't have the obsession to do drugs. It's not there. The obsession's been lifted and it's gone. What ties into where other issues come in is today I have a thinking problem.
A thinking
problem. So that's what I work on today. The drugs and the alcohol are gone. So what I have to work on is how I act, how I respond, and being conscious of other people's feelings and having their respect and being, able to eat humble pie every once in a while for myself and face.
That's okay.
Face some of that humility. And so, because if I don't do certain things today, I don't have to pick up a drink or a drug to act out in those behaviors. So for me, I look at it as long as I'm doing, whatever's working right now, I'm going to keep on doing it because it's working.
Yes, and you have it within you.
Yes.
To work through or to get through the challenges that come along. And I know you can do that.
Yeah, and if people could just see that. And I'm not sitting here tonight to hear myself speak. And in any story that I could tell, I'm not here to make that up. I have no benefit of making anything up. The help is here. If you put the work in, you're going to see benefits.
And because you and Melinda have both been through the addiction scenario, you have an inner insight as to what other people with addictions, at least to some extent, it's not the same for everybody, I'm sure,
right.
But you have a perspective, and that helps you to understand some of these other folks who are going through their own challenges and to try to, to help them work through. And I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure but one of the tougher challenges in life, and that makes you stronger
right.
as a human being and more aware of you, of who you are, and what you've been able to accomplish and what you're doing today that is of service to other people, trying to help them to get through this, I don't know what I want to call it, this barrier to a better life.
Yeah, I mean it's the season that we're in right now, and that's if you look at it by seasons. This too shall pass, and we're gonna get through this.
And it's spring, so spring forward.
Spring forward, new.
They say fall back, but we don't want that.
New life. I mean, there's just so much
opportunity
to be excited about.
Yes.
And some days I feel guilty because I get so excited and so amped up of what I have today, but I know what I had to do to get it, and I want everybody to have it.
Yeah, but you have to earn it. You have to work your way through it.
There's some work.
Whether it's addiction or whether it's some other part of your attitude, maybe not addiction, but an attitudinal problem, or maybe, you've been told you're not worth anything or, whatever, and you kind of absorb that. And so it's a process to work through where you are at the time and to look for the resources that can help you to do that. But you have to be ready to take those steps.
Right.
And to do whatever it's going to take to get you onto a healthier, brighter future.
It's a connection. You got to connect. And like I said, the resources are out there. You have the Restorative Justice Center with anybody that has anything to do, any criminal background, Department of Corrections, so you can connect with the Restorative Justice Center. You have Howard Center. You have Phoenix House. You have the Turning Point. You have the Samaritan House.
Wow.
You have Martha's Kitchen. CVOEO, I mean, that's community action. It's just abundance of help out there.
Services out there.
It's there.
You gotta wanna.
And there's people that are just like Melinda and I that are ready to help and go above and beyond. And if you're ready, then we're ready to help you.
Perfect way to end the show. We're down to 10 seconds. Folks, I hope that you listened carefully, and certainly if you know anyone who has an addiction problem and would like to seek help, there are all kinds of resources out there in this area and throughout the state. Feel free to direct them if they're ready to change their lives. Thank you so much, Jody, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Linda. I love you.
I love you too. And thank you for being who you are.
Thank you.
Folks, that's it for tonight. I'll see you again next week. Have a great week ahead. Good night.